Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the second part of our Teach from Home series, brought to you by Macmillan Teacher Campus, Macmillan Education, and Tropon Publishers. Also, a warm welcome back to everyone who attended yesterday's session. I hope you've given some thought about the ideas that came through yesterday. If you did miss yesterday's session, your presenter, Karen Wallstra, will give you a short overview of the main ideas, and then there's also a recording available of yesterday's fantastic session. Please remember to chat with me in the chat section. I'll try as far as possible to answer all of your questions. Those that I can't answer, we'll have a leave over for the Q&A session at the end. There's always some very interesting discussions that are coming through for Q&A, so please stick around for that. And then I'll also make some notes about interesting comments and statements that you make on the chat section. Our presenter today again is Karen Wallstra. Welcome back, Karen. We thoroughly enjoyed your session yesterday, and we can't wait to dig a little bit deeper today. So sit back, relax. Karen, over to you.
Morning, everybody. I hope you're well and warm, and we look forward to sharing with you again today. So just as some ground rules, hope you've got something warm to drink. We'd really like your participation again within this chat. So the way that you would do that is, first of all, please make sure that you've downloaded the materials. So that's the gray little box underneath the little bubble. And the session today is quite interactive. So we would love for you to have downloaded the notes, and you can click on the links as we work through today's session. The second thing is we want you to talk to us, engage with us, participate. So the way you do that is click on your little chat button, which is that little bubble under the people on the right-hand side. When you first click, it might open the Word, and then you click again and it opens up the chat. If you look at the bottom, it says enter your message. That's where you would click and you would write. And when you've done your writing, just click enter and your message would pop up for everyone to see. So we would love for you to participate, engage, share your ideas and thoughts, and also to put in questions and queries as we go along. So let's begin. So why do we do this remote teaching? Yesterday we shared some ideas. Let's look at some thoughts. So you care for your students. You're in the profession of upskilling people. And so it's not just leaving them in the lurch. It's saying, how do we do this? And how do we actually engage with each other? That your students come first. If you didn't have students, you wouldn't have a job. And that's the reality of the situation. But put them first. Make sure they're on track and that they're feeling like that they're getting involved within the session. That your students will achieve their learning goals, that they can become meaningful citizens to grow our economy. I truly believe that TVET colleges are actually a real cornerstone in terms of the economy. The skills that you teach students around engineering, electricity, your ECD practitioners, hospitality, tourism, all of those kinds of businesses can really grow our economy. And so we want your students to be empowered, to feel successful, to become meaningful in their spaces so that they grow into the economy and really boost our world around us. And so your role as lecturers is vital in terms of making that become a reality for them and for our country. The other thing is we've got to teach remotely because the work must go on. We can't say, throw our hands up and say this can't be done. Your students have signed up for a course. So let's find ways in which we can engage and collaborate and actually take it forward. So where should you begin? First of all, if you're looking at yourself and you're not back at college, have you set up a space where this teaching can take place? Have you actually thought about the environment that you've created for yourself in this strange space that we're finding ourselves in? Do you have a device to use? Have you gone to college and fetched a device, or have you got one where you can actually be creating your notes or conducting your video conferences and so forth? Are you sure that your device is charged and working? So if you've got to go and sit in a space where perhaps there's no plug because you're going into a smaller room at home or a quieter space where the rest of your family isn't, are you able to use your device because you've remembered to charge it? Do you have earphones? Earphones are really useful. You don't need huge, big sound blocking earphones, but just your ordinary little earbuds that you get with your cell phones are really useful in terms of just hearing better in terms of a video conference or an audio conference, and or the disturbances around you are not as great. And then being prepared to learn, that you yourself have switched your head on to say, hey, this is a space where I can upskill myself and I can learn new skills within this space. And then changing mindsets. Perhaps you yourself have been afraid or uncertain. Perhaps you've got colleagues around you are feeling like that. But starting to look for the positive is really important. So what are the kinds of things that you can do? Little baby steps. Look at the growth and things that you've done. Be proud of the tools that you're using and the successes that you've made. So how do we interact? Well, we can do this online at the same time, whether it's in a video conference or whether it's on a collaborative document, but synchronous working is at the same time. So that's your one version of working on the web. And the other one is asynchronous. That's where you use work in different time slots, that it's more convenient and flexible and very similar to what you do with your lectures. So where you do part of it as a synchronous type thing and part of it where they go and do their work on their own, and that's asynchronous. I think when we are working, we do a mixture of both of these, whether it's with remote learning or whether it's face-to-face. But how can we translate this going forward in terms of how we do? So let's now start looking at some of the tools that we would use. Quite a few of you over the last few sessions have said that you use Moodle. Moodle is not a new tool. It's been around for a while, but it really is an effective learner management system. So you can customize it to make it look like your organization, that you wouldn't have Moodle's orange space, but you would have your college's details up and branding around that. The really cool thing with Moodle is you've got two big spaces where you do your work. You've got an activity section and a resource section. The resource section is stuff that you've created and not interactive. So your notes, a link to a video, all the kinds of things where the students would be able to get information but not engage back. The activity section, on the other hand, is really collaborative and interactive. So there are a range of different quiz type scenarios. So they've got your quizzes, you've got your scrums, you've got surveys. So you can create a range of those different types of things. You've also got a chat feature similar to the kind of chat that we've got in the video call. So if you're using Moodle, you need to be using both of these spaces where your students can actually collaborate and work with you. In the assignment type section, you can have a document created. If it's a Microsoft type document, the students would download it, fill in the answers and upload it back for you to use. With a Google document, they would just open the link, they could work on it and then share it back with you on the platform. You would see the link there. So using it to become an interactive tool is really effective. This is an example of a Moodle lesson that I created many years ago. It was for grade 7 children, and they were making electric powered vehicles. And for me, the interesting thing is you can put all your outcomes in there. You can add links to different types of documents. You can do researching. So the way this project worked with my children that I was working with is they did all the building and things physically. So they actually made these electric powered vehicles, but they took videos, their designs that they drew, they uploaded those. So they took photos of their designs. They didn't do the designs digitally, but they learned digitally. So we found resources and animations of how to learn about electric circuits, and that was all done virtually. they took photos and screenshots of the little pages that they used to prove that they'd actually done the learning. And so it's integrating different technologies can be really effective. The cool thing with Moodle is if you look carefully, you'll see that there are little eyes next to the X's on the right. With Moodle, you don't have to open your whole lesson at once. You can slowly unlock little bits and pieces so your students get fed the pieces as you're working through your module. The other program that many people are using now is Google Classroom. When Google was developed, it was said to not be an LMS, but it's morphed into a really, really cool LMS. So if we look here, here's a screenshot of just some of the classrooms that I've created over a period of time. And so getting your students to be engaged within that space is also useful. It's web-based and it's an app, so it works effectively on your phones and your tablets, as well as just on a device with the web link. The other thing is you can customize the header. You can make it, you can make your own one so that it's branded for your organization as well. So if we look here is an example of what the Moodle will look like. You've got 4 areas. So if you look at the top above create, you'll see it says stream. Stream is your communication space. That's where you can send messages either to your class as a whole or to individual students, and they can do the same with you if you've switched it on. The second space is the class work. So what you're looking at here is the class work. Within the space, you will see that the bold words, so for example, the module assessment and the mock assessment, those types of things are the topics within it. Sorry, my mouse has opened all sorts of things on this Windows device. And so you can see within that space the different kinds of headings. So you can customize that. Then you can put a range of activities within here. You can put your assignments, which can be interactive documents. It can be whatever you've created for them to use. You can have quizzes within your space. And so you can really customize it to suit what you're learning. The next one is people. So your people are both the teachers or the lecturers that you are wanting to see your classroom. So it might be a moderator or a senior person who's coming in just to have a look. It might be a colleague who might be team teaching with you. You might have shared it with a colleague so that you can actually just moderate and see, do you agree with what each other has done? You might add your tutors as teachers because they might be helping you to mark work. So that's the teacher section. And under that, you would also then have all your different students and their contacts in there. The last one is marks. So marks is now a really wonderful space in Classroom. What Google has added is a mark book that's part of your classroom, and anything that you've marked or created within your module in your Google Classroom, it automatically gets fed through to your marks page. That marks page can then be downloaded as a spreadsheet, whether it's a Google Sheet or as a Microsoft spreadsheet, but really useful. Underneath that, you can see it says Meet. So Meet is Google's Hangout or video conferencing. So you can have a link directly in your classroom so your students can find that easily. It can link to your Google Calendar, and it can also has a Google Drive folder where all the documents are also saved for your students to see that you're using. So a really all-encompassing, easy tool to use for your students. So we have these LMSs, these big spaces where our students are going to engage and collaborate. But to make those documents, the students need to know how to use a productivity suite. Whether it's a Microsoft one or a Google one or an Apple one, it doesn't matter. But we should definitely be having spaces or teaching our students how to use these tools. How do you use a Microsoft or Google document? How do you make it? What are the features? Why is it useful? When do you use a document and when do you use a spreadsheet? Why do we need to use spreadsheets? How are spreadsheets useful? And so learning to use these different tools is really important. So that development is effective. The other thing is across your institution, use the same productivity suite. That really avoids confusion. So make sure that the students are learning the skills and actually learning how to use the tools well within one space. So if we're looking at this, use one platform for communication with your students. You've then got standardization across your space. So it then everybody knows what they're going to be used. You've also got better control. All of these systems have an administrative platform, and then you can be working within that platform, and so it's easier for the people managing it. Make it practical and effective communication so that people know where to find things and how to use the tools. So, for example, there are different ones. You might have a TVET portal that's been created in-house that you're using, or you might be using an LMS like Google or Moodle, but it's been customized to suit your organization. You might be using emails within the space. You might be using bulk SMSs, or you might be using WhatsApps. So for me, things like the portal and the LMS are really important in terms of where all the documents are put, where students need to find the information and the material that's been developed. Emailing is a really easy way of communicating with your students. So summaries of what's happening, when colleges might be opening. So giving them news and information around what's happening as a whole is a really effective manner. But another one that you should consider is also SMSs. Sometimes students don't have data and can't get onto the web. So bulk SMSs can also be useful in terms of informing your students, telling them what's going to happen and what they need to look out for. Over the last few weeks, I've seen lots and lots of you have been using WhatsApp. My suggestion is that WhatsApp can be really useful, but the other side of it is it also can hinder your students in terms of how they're engaging with you and getting bulk lots of information out. The other thing is, if you're using WhatsApp, please, please, please make sure that you've got a college policy around that so that they know what's expected of them and how to use it, and that you as lecturers are protected in terms of within these WhatsApp groups. So you're not within your college domain, you're now outside of that, and you would have created it within your personal space. So make sure that there are parameters and limits within that and how it's expected to be used. And what's the etiquette around it and what's appropriate to be posting. So if you're using something like WhatsApp, please make sure that there is a policy around how to use it. For me, the other thing is that's really useful at this time is a digital live calendar, because that can be so easily updated and used. I would upload your students' timetables as they are, so the whole college's timetable, including your individual students' timetables. This then can then be shared with your students so that everybody's on the same page in terms of when sessions are going to happen. There's no confusion. It's not downloading a PDF that might be out of date. The other thing is, by using a digital calendar, everybody knows what's happening that day. Whether you're administrators or teachers or lecturers, you'll know what's happening. So everybody's on the same page. If something is updated, everybody can see it and know that it's being used. It's really easy to access video meetings. If you're using the same calendar as your productivity suite, you can put the links in there to go into a Teams meeting or to go into a Google Meet, because you all know how to use the tool. So it's a really easy way of accessing it. Again, it avoids confusion because you're not perhaps looking at a PDF that's old. Everybody has the live updated version. And then you're also developing digital skills, learning how to use a calendar, how to make it effective, to organize appointments, to make video conferences, to set spaces where meetings can be specially arranged, that you can actually say to students, these slots are available for you to meet me. All those types of skills are useful to both you as the lecturer and to the students. So for me, I think that we should ditch the paper diary and we should turn to digital. It really is an easy way of engaging with everybody. The next thing is looking at your video conferencing. So how you can actually see your students when you're working remotely, that they don't feel isolated. Choose a video conference that relates to your productivity suite. So maybe it's Google Hangouts or maybe it's Teams. Quite a few organizations are also using Zoom. The other one is schedule these meetings inside the calendar that we spoke about earlier. So then it's easy to find. The next thing is teach time management from your students. So for example, not logging on an hour before a video call, but actually 2 minutes before the call is totally acceptable. And when I worked for Google, we used to say that if people hadn't hopped into the meeting by 6 or 7 minutes after the call has started, the call was stopped and was seen as it would be rescheduled. So teaching students around managing their time and not wasting a lot of data being logged on a long time before it. Then teaching your students conferencing etiquette. For example, that when they hop in, that they would actually mute themselves. It's really, really important that you mute yourself as you go into a video conference. One, you don't know what people are talking about as you're going in. Two, there might be a lot of noise behind you, an unexpected noise. So the first thing is muting yourself. The other thing is that it's not bad manners to switch off your camera. For example, if you are sitting in this call now with your camera on, it's not needed. We can't see each other. You're listening to the presentation. So switching your camera off saves you then a lot of data. The other kinds of thing is teaching the students the same, but if they are muted and their cameras are off, make sure that you're engaging them a lot using the chat so that they're not disappearing, that you think they're in the call and they're not at all. Then discuss for short periods of time. If you're using video conferencing, don't use your full lecture hour. It's really wasting data for the students. Get to the point, share what you want, and then move on. Teach your students how to use these tools is also important because they might want to use it for group collaboration. So teach them the features within the space is really effective. Share your screen, just like I'm sharing my screen now, so that it's not just them looking at you or listening to you, but actually that you've created a resource where they can see what you are talking about and making it meaningful. And then the other thing is really think of recording these video meetings. If somebody wasn't able to attend or because they didn't have data or because they were ill for the day, if you recorded the meeting and you then share it with your whole class, they would then still be able to see what was discussed during that session. We're now going to do a poll, and I want you to ask what technology you use for your remote learning. There are a range of different answers in this section. Please would you select more than one if you're using more than one of these technologies. I'm just going to launch it. I'm assuming most of you would be using a range of them, so please don't just choose one. Choose the ones that are really meaningful to you or that you are using. I'm assuming you would definitely be using a Microsoft or a Google. You might be using a Moodle or a college portal or LMS, and maybe you're using other. The same applies to yesterday. If you can't actually click on the topics within the space, please would you type in the chat the responses that you're getting in. If you're using Google Classroom, are you using Google Classroom with G Suite, with Google's other tools, or are you using Google Classroom with Microsoft? So if you could have a look at those types of things, please. Thank you to those who are participating. This is really encouraging. So thank you very much. I'm going to give you a few more seconds. I see some of you have said other. Tell us if you've got other. Tell us what the other is. What are the things? Are you just using WhatsApp? So all sorts. Tell us the kinds of tools that you're using that you really love. I'm going to give you 1 or 2 more seconds, and then I'm going to close the poll. If I've closed it and you'd still like to put comments in, please put them in the chat. I'm going to close the poll. I'm now going to share the responses. So for me, it's really interesting. So 41% of you are using Microsoft, and then 52% are using other. And if I scroll through the chats and look at the other, it looks as if most of you are using WhatsApp. It would be really interesting to know how you are using WhatsApp. Are they broadcast messages that you're using? Are they interactive chats? Are you small groups, or is it whole class? Is it a mixture? So would really love to know how you are using WhatsApp. I'm going to hide the responses and continue with the discussion. Thank you so much for your involvement. That's really, really useful. Thank you. So let's get to know some of these tools that are available. So first of all, what I'd really like you to explore and look at is Macmillan. So if you've downloaded that sheet that we asked you to, the one called Notes, you will see that all the links for all the things that I'm speaking about and some others are actually in that little sheet. So Macmillan has these amazing TVET resources that are available to you. So if you go in and have a look, you'll see that there's for lecturers and for students, that there are a range of different books that you can view. But then if you scroll down, you'll see that there are lecturer support packs for NATED and for NCV. And when we open these, it opens a world of wonder. So each of these little red spaces that you can actually see on here, where it says Engineering Science Module 1 and goes up to 6, or mathematics, or entrepreneurship, or communication and management communication, each of these is a PowerPoint presentation. And when you open them up, you'll see that you click on it and it'll download it. So if you look at the bottom of my screen, you'll see over here that it's busy downloading. There are animations in the space. There's an explanation. There are video clips. There are a range of different resources that you can use. So you don't even have to prepare the notes to do these. You can take these, adapt them, change them. So really useful resource for you to go and have a look at these different topics and this resource that's been here and used. So looking at Macmillan and the TVET College downloads. But when you go onto the Macmillan Education website as a whole, you'll see that there are a range of others. We'll talk about a few more during today, but there are a lot more than the ones that we just mentioned in here. The other one to look at is Tropont. So Tropont publishes works with Macmillan, and they have a range of courses, so N1 to N6 types courses, as well as certification. So go and have a look at their website, both for their publications and their courses. Then I started looking at, so what's available online that you can use that already exists? And some of your TVET colleges have really made amazing portals. So I came across this one, and I just want to show you or share with you what really attracted me to this one. Is that when you hop on, first of all, you've got all the courses really easily registered on the side over here. So you can actually see what the students can easily see what's available and click on it and hop into those courses. So really user friendly. The other thing, if you look at on the top right, it says online learning. So for me, that was also really useful, that making that bold and clear on the website where the students know they can go and find it. So for me, this was a really useful website to use. I really thought that was useful. The other thing is that the telephone number was easily available on the website. So for me as a student over the years, I've often wanted to phone the institution I was studying with, and I couldn't actually see the phone number. And then you phone a number you find, and they tell you, no, that's not right. That this number was easily available was really useful. And then, as I said, that they highlighted the online learning. The next resource that I thought was really useful is IXL. So some of you have got students who are doing Maths Lit or trying to redo or to complete their matric mathematics. So IXL is a resource which you can pay for or it's free. It goes from grade R to grade 12. So even your ECD practitioners, there are resources here that you could use. But if you scroll down, yes, there are apps for IXL, that's right. And if you scroll down, you can actually see all the different skills that you can explore, and lots of them are interactives. So a really useful tool to go and use. So have a look at this. And as somebody put in the chat, yes, it's oh, Ricky, you did. It's an app as well. The next resource that I really thought would be really beneficial to you as lecturers is this tool called reflective learning. Reflective learning is actually a South African organization or developed in South Africa. And what it looks at is it looks at the diagnostic maths assessment. So when we look at our little children, often there are gaps in the maths that they're trying to do. So what reflective learning does is that they get the children to do an assessment, and then they create a personalized learning space to help the children fill those gaps so that they can carry on. So your grade 10, 11, and 12 students would do the grade 9 assessment, and then it would fill all the gap knowledge that your students have done within that space. Reach out to this organization. It's a really effective tool, and I think it can really benefit lots and lots of students who often might have left school and ended up at your TVET colleges because they didn't like maths or found maths difficult. The other resource that I really want to share with you is called iBrain Gym. iBrain Gym is developed by a company called Lector SA. They are also a South African company, and they have been doing research with Stellenbosch University for about the last 6 or 7 years. And what it is it's an initial assessment to find out what your level of visual intelligence is and how that helps with your learning. Once the students have done this initial assessment, they then work through a 6-week course in how to develop your visual intelligence. And what the university has discovered is that the students who finish this 6-week course actually go on and finish their university degrees in the designated time period. They don't take extra years of working. For me, this is a kind of tool that everybody should be using. Interestingly enough, they have customers in the UAE, in the USA, and in Europe. And in South Africa, it's like a strain to find people to use it. But it's an amazing resource that can benefit all of us, from really young children to even us as adults working within the space. So go and explore this iBrain Gym. It's now an app and really effective within that space. So go and have a look at these tools. Let's now look at early childhood development. So Macmillan has amazing resources for early childhood development, also in a range of different South African languages. So really useful for your teachers to use and to explore. If you look down, you will see that it's got a whole lot of the different languages, as I've said. So go in and explore these resources for you to use with your ECD practitioners. So looking again, as I said, go into this Macmillan education resource and just go and explore the different topics. Another resource, if you're teaching ECD students, is this little book called Grade R Practical Ideas. It's not a new book, it's a really old book. If you look at the URL, you can see it was launched in 2009, but it has very practical hands-on ideas using available materials. So a really good resource to share with your students, for them to use as a resource as they're going forward, but also for you to get ideas for your lectures. Another resource for ECD, which is for me really interesting, is made by the Reach Trust. So the Reach Trust is an NGO and they develop educational resources. This one, called Care Up, gives the ECD practitioner tips, I think it's 2 or 3 times a week, on how to actually teach early literacy. These are stories, there are animations, there are interactives that the students can actually be, or the ECD practitioners can be using to help their students, that the students can actually go on and complete the little activities, or they can listen to the stories. And the Reach Trust has a range of different resources here. So go and look at the Reach Trust. They are only Android apps. They are not iOS apps, so only in Google Play Store will you find them, but there are a range of them. You can also hop onto the Reach Trust website and see some of the other resources that they've developed there as well. Another resource which I really, really love is Gnarly Bali. So Gnarly Bali has been going for a few years now. They have these a wide range of stories, South African-based type stories, also now in a range of different languages, and they have other resources as well. So hop into the Gnarly Bali space that you can share with your practitioners. Now if we move on to another topic, those of you who are working within building and construction, again, hop into the Macmillan space. You'll see some of the topics here are applied management, bricklaying and plastering. So go in and have a look at the different topics here of materials which would be available for you to use with your students. Again, go back into this space that we spoke about just now. Download PDFs that are, not PDFs, PowerPoints that are useful to you within the space, adapt them, change them, and make them your own that you can use with the wonderful resources that are here. Oops, I didn't want to click on the link. The next thing that I want to show you is TVET. So TVET is a really incredible resource. TVET makes interactive simulations, and I've just realized I didn't download this one for you. So TVET is made by the University of Columbia, and oh, there's somebody. Oh, Ricky, you're saying you love TVET. Yes, I love TVET too. They've been going for years, and if you look at the screenshot again, within the space, you can see that there's a range of different topics. So if you're teaching science, anything related to the sciences, there's probably a simulation that you can use. So whether you're in building and construction or engineering and manufacture, go and look at these. So I'll show you the one over here. So this is just looking at force and balance. So what you would go in is you would look at the different objects. You can add your labels. You can add your rulers to the space, then you can add your loads and see the reaction that you would get and play within this space and make it see if it's working. You can then put your other loads on in a different space and see how they react. So this is just one simple example, but as I said, there are lots and lots of different animations, forces, as Ricky put in the chat, biology and science. Go and have a look and see. Really, really useful. If anybody is using TVET that's in the chat, perhaps you want to share some of the ones that you like, that you have been using in your lectures. The other thing that I would really encourage you to do as a lecturer is go and play, go and explore. So we've all got smartphones, and often the apps we download are just for fun. My suggestion is go and find apps that relate to what you are teaching, what is effective for you. So I went in and had a look at apps, and I typed in construction or building. And if you look on the right-hand side, there's a range of different examples that I got. For example, construction calculator, the calculator for building material estimate. Is that something your students need to do? If it is, check it out. Download the app, play in it. Does it have in-app purchases? Is it working well? Does it do what you want it to do? So before you share it with your students, make sure you've played in whatever app you've selected. But there are hundreds of apps which might not have been designed for teaching, but are actually very, very useful for you to use as an additional resource in what you are doing. Another resource which we also don't often think of from a work point of view is YouTube. Hop into YouTube and search the topics that you think will be useful for you. Get your look at the YouTube clips and see, is it appropriate? So if you look at the top one, you'll see it's 21 minutes. That's quite long. Do you want your students to be in a video for that long? Whereas maybe perhaps one of the shorter ones are better and get to the point of what you're trying to teach in that space. In the chat, I've also put down an app which I think is really useful called YouTube Go. And what YouTube Go is, it allows you to download the YouTube apps. They then live on your device for a limited time period. I think it's 30 days, but you can always extend that period. So think of using something like YouTube Go for your students, that they don't have to keep looking at using data every time they look at the video. Just as we saw resources for building and construction, Macmillan has resources if you're looking at beauty therapy and those types of ones. So if you look at the screenshot, you'll also see that there are things for electrical installations, food and beverage services. So please go into this website and have a look at all the different types of resources that are available. Again, if you're teaching beauty therapy, there are apps that are not designed for a learning space. They're designed to sell a product, or they're designed to help put on makeup. But perhaps these are the kind of things that you could actually be using with your students. Go and explore the types of apps that are available. See if they're ones that are useful. Again, check that there are no in-app purchases, and check that they are relevant to what you're teaching. So that perhaps that they are in English. Sometimes they're not always in English. So find ones that are suitable for your students. The next thing is if you're teaching digital skills. Again, Macmillan has a range of workshops that can be conducted around using digital tools. So for example, basic tablet training, cyber safety, how to plan an e-lesson. So a range of these. If you look at the screenshot, again, you'll find them on the website. But what they've also developed is a digital terminology resource. And I'm assuming that it's been put into the resources today. Has it, Ricky? So this digital terminology resource also is a useful document for you to download.
Yes, it's part of the downloadable resources for today.
Thank you. So have a look at that as well. Google has a really cool resource that you can use. One, you can use it from a business or a digital skills resource, but also just for teaching your students how to use the web. So there are about 125 courses within the space. Some of them are certified, some are just online courses. You can see that they look at a range of topics, so data, technology, digital marketing, so different topics within the space. Some of them are really long. For example, this marketing one is 40 hours with 26 modules, whereas others are really short, that are just an hour or half an hour long and are teaching a range of skills. The skills in this space go from using the actual digital tools like Google's G Suite, but also how to do an interview, or how do I create a CV. So there are tools in here that could probably benefit all your students. And then if you look on the side under course provider, you will see the range of organizations Google's worked with in the space. So go and have a look at this, whether you just type in Google digital skills or digital skills for Africa, you land up in a similar space. I have loved virtual reality and augmented reality for years. I just think it's something which we should really be using with our students to truly engage and interact with them and show them a different view of how they can actually see things. And I'm going to try and switch on my camera and hopefully you can see me. So let's see if it works. Ricky, can you see me?
Karen, your screen is black again today, so perhaps we should just...
Okay, no, I'm going to switch it off. So look at this tool called Google Expeditions. Google Expeditions has both virtual reality and augmented reality activities in there. There are about 1,000 resources. We've put the spreadsheet link in there for you so you don't have to scroll through the app. But if you don't have virtual reality goggles for this, you can still be using the VR ones just by scrolling through the 360 pictures. So a really interesting resource that you can be using with your students. Go and play with some of it and see all the different topics. I just grabbed careers, and those were some of the careers that came up. Then start looking for resources which relate to your topic. So start with government resources. Governments have often developed really cool websites with a range of topics. So here, if we go into agriculture, forestry, and fisheries, they've got programs that you can look at and use. So, and they've got a range of different links to research and articles. So go into these kinds of websites and actually see how it's beneficial to you within your space. But then also go and explore the websites of other countries. So the Australian website, which is looking at agriculture and using it within schooling, has got actual lessons within it. It's taking a while to open, I see. It has a range of different topics, and you'll see that they go from climate and land and water all the way through to different types of farming. So really nicely spread out, and a range of really useful resources that you could share with your students within the space. So don't just look at our government, look at other government websites as well and see what resources are available to use. The cool thing with the government websites is that the resources are almost always free. Another thing that you can actually do with your students too, if you're doing hospitality or tourism, but it also links to maths, is this app called geocaching. So geocaching is a worldwide treasure hunt. You download the app, it's Android and iOS, and you then go and put in your location, or you just switch the location on, and it finds the geos around your space. You can also put it in for other locations and see what's there. So if you look at the pictures over here, you will see that we've got the geo on the one side of the examples that were in this area, and then in the middle, the one that I really liked was a geo was hidden over here with all this graffiti. So geos you can actually use to go and visit. You go and find the little thing, you open it up. Sometimes they're tokens to take out, sometimes there's a notebook. So if you look at the top where I'm holding the little notebook, that was a geo we found at the Kruger Park. And then you write your little note into it. There are a whole lot of rules around don't disturb the environment, don't go onto private property, but go and have a look at using geocaching. The other thing is it all works with coordinates. So then you are teaching maths and making your maths meaningful. So one, you're going on a treasure hunt and learning about new spaces, but two, you reinforcing math skills. Then if we're looking at tourism or arts and culture, how are you actually encouraging your students to be aware of the museums around us? We have some incredible museums around the country. And in almost every little town, there is a museum. Are you saying to your students, can they work with their local museum and upgrade it, or perhaps give it a facelift, or perhaps give it a paint, or add information around all the community history? And so how are we actually building up these kinds of resources, but also using them within our teaching spaces and making our students aware of them? Go in and have a look at the individual websites of tourism. There's some amazing websites that you can use. And then when you're looking at websites, do the same. I mean, when you're looking at museums, go and look at our art galleries. There are some stunning art galleries all over the show. But Standard Bank has this amazing virtual art gallery, which is really, really incredible. as it takes you into the space, and you can actually go in and move around the art gallery. You can go up to the artwork and you can read about the artwork. You can move around the art gallery and you can actually see the different artworks within that space. So as it opens, you'll see all those little green dots, and you can click on those green dots and it takes you around the art gallery. When you open up one of the dots, it then tells you about that artwork. So another really cool resource. And what's interesting about these virtual kinds of spaces is lots of manufacturing companies and big organizations have these virtual types of tours. So go and have a look at these, go and find ones that are really useful for your space. Don't just look at the art galleries, but go and search topics and add in virtual tours, and you'll see the amazing ones that come up. You can go and do tours inside the Egyptian pyramids. You can go and look at a range of different spaces. A website I haven't put into this presentation is called Google's Arts and Culture, and there are a whole lot of artworks, but also a range of virtual tours within that space. Then for tourism, just local, how many of you have been watching the live safaris that have been promoted during the lockdown? If you have been, just say yes, you have. But I then did a search in terms of, are there others? And look at the screenshot in terms of what I found. There are lots of these, and some of them have been running for a while. So I know years ago we watched the one with the black eagle at the Walter Sisulu Botanical Gardens. But go and look for these virtual tours, and some of them are recorded that you can also make your students aware of them. Or perhaps your students, if you're doing tourism, could create their own. Getting people to be aware of tourism spaces. Then your botanical gardens. I love botanical gardens. We go visiting botanical gardens whenever we go to new spaces, whether it's here or in other countries. How are you making your students aware of the botanical gardens? They've also got amazing websites. As I said, some of them have got virtual tours, but making our students aware of resources around them that can be used for tourism, for hospitality, for those types of careers. Then for me, we've now spoken about things. We want to engage with our students. So how do we engage with our students? And it's all about the questions. So what questions are you asking your students? Are you going beyond the knowledge and recall? Are you encouraging the higher order thinking? Are you getting students to analyze and synthesize their types of work that they're working on? But from a technology point of view, are you using interactive technology to do this? The really cool thing is that you can customize the questions that you ask for the topic that you're teaching. You then get use the response system to get instant feedback. And instant feedback is an absolute treasure when you are teaching, whether it's face-to-face or remote teaching, because you know as the lecturer immediately if your students know or understand the work, and do you need to carry on teaching, or do you have to go back and repeat? The students also know exactly where they stand. And so from a remote learning point of view, it's very useful for engagement and discussion. The other thing with using this type of questioning is that everybody's involved. When your students are sitting in front of you, maybe one or two of them put up their hands bravely. But if you are working from a response type systems, everybody is able to get involved and everybody is able to participate. And so these systems have a range of different questions that you could ask, and you can set them so that they can feedback straight away. You can also set them that you can go in, moderate, mark long questions, and feedback later. So very useful tools to use. Let's have a look at some of the examples. So the first one I want us to have a look at is a Google form. So here I created a form. I used a picture, a photograph from my husband that he took when he was working with one of the mines. I edited and cropped it so your form doesn't have to look all gray like a normal standard form is, but you can actually go in and use it effectively within the space. I would really like you to complete this form this quickly and I'm just going to put the link in the chat and show you how quick and easy it is for you to actually get responses from your students. So if you would click on the link as it pops up, so you should be able to click on the link and see the form. It opens up in a new tab on your computer. And if you could answer the questions, don't worry about whether they're right or wrong. Just quickly select whatever you like and you can answer them. If you look at my screen, you will see that there's a pencil. The pencil only comes up for the person who has created the form. So if I click on the pencil, it now opens up the editing features so I can show you what happens on this form. So you can see 148 people have responded to this form. Underlined is the question, so I'm in the question section. You can create a range of different types of questions. The way I've done this form is, one, you've got a checkbox, and so the checkbox here is whatever you've marked as right, the people have to get all of them right to get their answers right. If they leave any out, it's marked as wrong. But you as the lecturer can actually go in and edit the marks again. So you can go student by student and edit that, and I'll show you how just now. Then the other thing is that there are a range of different questions that you can ask. So if you open up the question section, you will see that you can, let me just click on it and show you. Come on, add a question. Where are you? You can do short questions, long answers, multiple choice. You can do grid type questions, so a whole range. So let's go into the responses. So when you look at it as a lecturer, the way that I've set this up, you either get 1 or 4 marks because of using the checkboxes. And to get 4 marks, you had to give all. Oh, that's interesting. So can you see I edited 1 in a lecture, and so we gave them the extra marks, so somebody got 10. So you as the lecturer can then go in and edit it, like I said. You can also see question by question, and you can go in and look at your students. And when you do that, that's where you would edit. If we go back, oh, and then this little green box over here, all of your forms automatically are linked to a Google spreadsheet, and you can always link other forms into the same spreadsheet. So I have organizations or schools which have a range of forms, but they all go into the same spreadsheet on their own tab, so it's really easy to find. If we go into questions, at the top, you can see your icons to actually use within this space. So you can see that you can edit your section within here and see what's happening. You can go into the palette and customize it. That's where you would upload your own images or use the images that are here. And the ones they've got, there's some animated ones, they're cool. You can view your form to see what it's going to look like. And then in settings, you would go in. You'll see that this box, which is restricted to my organization, is unticked, which means therefore anybody can see the link. You can then go into presentation, where you can shuffle the question order. So that's like randomizing it if you don't want everybody to get the same question at the same time. And then if you go into quizzes, and you switch this on, this is where your marking kicks in. So I've set it for you to immediately see the answer after submission. So if you've clicked and you've submitted, you should be able to see results, and you would be able to open it up and it'll tell you what your results were. Or you can get them when they see the results. Do they see the missed questions, the correct answers, or the point values? So a really, really useful tool for you to use. That's Google Forms. So it's set to auto mark, and you get instant feedback if you want your students, if you want to use it in that way. Another response system that I really like is Socrative. Socrative is also not a new tool. They've bought other companies out like Exit Ticket. So they have a range of resources within the space. They have a teacher app and a student app. So another one for you to play in is Socrative. So go and have a look also a really useful tool to use. The last one that I want to show you is Kahoot. Kahoot was originally designed for for teachers to actually use for face-to-face lessons, but actually they've now adapted it, especially for COVID, and they've made it so that you can actually use it for your students from a remote point of view, and they've called them challenges. So I'm popping a link into the chat. If you've got a surname that starts between A and L, if you would click on the top one. If you're from M to Z, click on the bottom one, because we've only got a limited number of delegates that are allowed to use these. And go in and answer the questions. Kahoot is a fun kind of interactive way of working, and there are thousands of Kahoots that people have already created. So if we go into Discover, you can then type in your topic within the space. There is a free version and a paid for version within Kahoot. So if we go, let's see if we type in construction, what we get while you're filling in the form. So here are just some examples that people have already made. So this construction one must be quite good. You've had 3,500 people have already played it. So go in and search your topic, and you'll see that there are Kahoots that have been made by individuals. You can use those ones for yourself, or you can create your own and customize your own. So you would go in and create your own and get people to work within them. What I've done for these webinars, because they are bigger groups of people, I've made the short little Kahoot that you're playing in now, and then I just made a copy. So you don't have to redo everything. Kahoots is now allowing you to make copies, which then makes it very easy for you to go in and actually have a look at what you've done before. I see this is taking a very long time to load. But Kahoots is really, really useful. As you go through your sessions with your students, you will see that it keeps a register of who's done what, and you can export your information out of that space as well. So go and explore Kahoots, a really nice resource that you can use with your students. And as I said, you can also export the results out of there. So Kahoots is fun. Go and have a look and play some of those in your live sessions when you get back to face-to-face classes. The music is really fun, and it's just a good way of getting engaged. So how do we actually do this remote learning? One, have meaningful resources. So websites, apps, animations, AR or VR, find resources that are relevant to what you teach. Then give regular feedback. And the easiest way to do that is with auto marking quizzes. So find ones that you like. We've shown you 3 examples, but there are lots. Then look at whole group online learning lectures. So telling everybody what's happening, informing everybody at once, but keep those short and add interactives around that. Then have smaller group tutorials where you can actually get to know your students, where you can engage with them better and you can communicate with them better. And then last of all, look at online learning resources. Write your own, create your own, begin experimenting within that space. Think about making your own short videos that you can share with your students. So I hope today it's given you some ideas and thoughts around what you could do. The world is your oyster around what you can do. It's actually unlimited. Go in and play and explore. Search your topic in the App Store, in Google. Type in a topic that you're busy working on and see what comes up. There might be other institutions around the world that have developed resources that you can use. So think about how you can actually use resources that are meaningful for your students. So I say thank you for your time and your participation. It's really valued. And we thank you for engaging, for your comments in the chat. if you could please complete the evaluation form. Your input is really valuable to us. So we say thank you for that. And thank you for your involvement today. Ricky, over to you.
Thanks, Karen. We just had one question from Ashwin, who wanted to know whether the iBrain Gym is a free resource to use or is it a paid for resource?
It is a paid for resource, but it also depends on how many students you have. So my suggestion is that you contact them and begin the chat, because I know that there are trials or examples that they can also share with you. So my suggestion is, if you like it, hop in and chat to them.
Thanks. And then I just wanted to say from Macmillan's side, we will be, personally, I'm going to be sending everyone that participated yesterday and today, I will send you the links to view the recordings, but we will also be placing links to the recordings on our website and on Facebook. So you can share the links with your friends. If they haven't attended these seminars, these webinars, then they're free to view them. They will also have access to the downloaded resources as well. They're linked to the recordings. So the only difference is you won't have access to the polls and the chats, but everything else you will have access to. And then also please be on the lookout for the 3 workshops that are coming for TVET colleges. They will be happening in July. The ones are the Google Classroom, setting it up from scratch, and then all the nice things, how to make it interactive and engaging, and all the add-ons that you can add to your Google Classroom. There's also one on video conferencing, and then there's also the one on absolutely fun teaching with apps. This one, we will show you how to evaluate the apps, because I think that's also very important for you to learn, that you know how to evaluate. Then I also just wanted to add to you from what I said yesterday as well is, go onto your Play Store and have a look at the different apps that are there for your specific subject. Search for things, and then look for stuff that you could use. And then if you know how to look for a specific app, look for ones that are not loaded with in-app purchases and lots of adverts, because those are really, really irritating to use. So really evaluate those apps carefully that you choose for your students. So that is all from my side. I don't think if you want to add something to that, Karen.
No, just go and play. Just play. Play with the technology.
Yeah.
Don't be scared. You can't break it. Go and play.
Thanks.
Yeah.
And then,
Thanks.
Karen, thank you so very, very much for your fantastic webinar today. Your presentation was absolutely phenomenal. And I hope that everybody has got so much energy and enthusiasm to start with the online. If you haven't started with it yet, again, the bottom line is explore and don't be scared. Don't be afraid. And then Karen and I are available if you want to drop us an email. We will help you and we'll assist you. And then other upcoming workshops that will take you even further to show you how to use those things in depth. So thank you very, very much. I'm going to end the session.
Ricky, I just see please can we have the link for the Google form? So if you've got a Gmail account, open your Google Drive, click on new, and you will see Google Forms is an option there, just under like where you can see sheets, docs, spreadsheets. That's where you get a blank form, and then just play. There are lots of videos where you can learn how to use them as well, but it's just part of Google's productivity suite.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks. Sorry.
Thanks very much.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.